Hi, welcome to Outside the Sanctuary. How are you? I am
Okay.
Bill Merkh. Okay, I'm Bill Merkh.
And I'm Greg Ginion.
And today we are discussing entertainment. We're going to talk about when I used to do church plays here and skits and stuff like that. But we'll also talk about, secular plays, music,
Movies, TV
movies.
shows.
Yeah, all that fun stuff.
Okay.
So I don't know where to kick it off, but I guess we'll start with your favorite show is Seinfeld, right? I mean,
Well, it's one of my favorites. Yeah,
one of your
I
favorites.
tend to like comedy.
Okay.
So yeah, Seinfeld was, something that was different than anything else on television at the time. And it ends up being a very quotable. And I think what made it, funny is it was the real life scenarios that we've all experienced, obviously exaggerated on television, but we can all, think of those times where we're waiting for a table at a Chinese restaurant or, somebody asks you to save seats in a movie theater and the tension and anxiety that can, take place in those things and just the common ordinary things of life and kind of finding the absurdity of it and bringing the humor out of it. That's why I always appreciated that show. Yeah. How about you? What is one of your favorite shows?
Well, I mean, Seinfeld I did love. Yesterday, we flew back into Philly, Lisa and I, my wife.
Your wife, Lisa?
My wife, Lisa. And we flew back in, and she said, I took a picture of where our car was. So it was CV42. And I had the picture, and she goes, I think we were on the third floor. I said, 42 would be the fourth floor. We go,
1, 2, 3, 4.
yeah, I thought that for sure.
Makes sense, right?
So we went to the fourth floor. We looked around for the car and couldn't find
it, even though you had the picture.
Even though I had the picture? Because on each level there's a V42. So looked around the fourth floor, went down to the third floor, and right where she said it. So it did totally remind me of the Seinfeld episode.
Where they spent the entire episode looking for their car in a parking garage.
Yes, and that was...
But you brushed over the fact that your wife was right and you were wrong.
I brushed that all over on purpose.
Yeah, I realized that. That's why I was bringing it up and pointing it out. Lisa, you were right.
Yes. I say that all the time.
I don't think you do.
I think that all the time.
Yeah, okay, that's probably better.
So let's get deep into my psyche. No, yeah. I'm just kidding. So
what else besides Seinfeld? What else did you like or currently like?
Well, as far as like comedies, I guess I don't really, I lean towards the weirdo comedies, I guess.
You wouldn't say.
So like, I did like Community.
Yeah, that's one I never watched.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one a lot. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt was another one I really love.
That was the lead role, and that was the woman who was on The Office for a time, right?
Now I did watch all The Office.
Yeah, The Office is another one that I found, very, very funny.
Now, to me, I love Ricky Gervais, so I did like
the original British version
like
of
the
The
British
Office.
version of The Office. I like all his little quirky shows.
Yeah, I watched like 1 or 2 episodes of that, and I was like, I don't like this.
Really?
But I understand why you would.
Yeah.
And we just have a different brand of humor. And I think his brand is he likes to make people feel awkward or uncomfortable. And it's in that he brings his humor out. And you like to make people feel awkward or uncomfortable. And you find humor in that. So I can understand why you would appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's kind of one thing I do enjoy. So if we go back to when I started writing plays here, Vince...
How long ago was that?
2001 was my first one.
Okay, so 23 years ago.
Yeah.
How old would you have been at the time? 20s or 30s?
I was early 20s.
Okay, so pretty young.
Yeah, 24, 23, 24.
All right, so you
But
had you ever written anything before that?
I had written a couple things. Never did anything come of anything. I just wrote it.
Right, but I'm saying you've always been creative.
Yeah, I
used that kind of as an outlet for your creativity.
Correct. And before that, I did do some stand-up at the Comedy Cabaret in Belmar. That's no longer there.
Oh, I need to know more on this.
Okay.
So I don't want to get away from
your stuff. Go away. This is fun.
Yeah. So how old were you when you decided to give that a shot for the first time?
18.
18.
Yeah.
And just on a whim, an open
I
mic
went
night,
to
you
an
just went
open
up
mic
and
night.
I said, I'm going to go
Well, I
give
mean,
my 5 minutes.
Yep. And I wrote it down and
So you actually had it written out. Did you practice before you went up?
yeah, I mean,
Like
yeah.
on people or just
No,
like
no, just
doing
pure,
did you have a bit or was it jokes?
No, it would be more bits than jokes.
Okay.
And so
I have to, is there any
probably
one of those jokes that you remember that you could say?
nah, probably not.
Okay.
No. And then
So you blocked that out because it was, I'm assuming, terrible because I mean, the first time you try anything, it's not going to be fantastic.
it actually wasn't too bad. I got some.
Were there people there?
Oh yeah.
And did they laugh?
And they did laugh.
Did anybody boo?
Not at that time.
Okay.
So then I started doing it regularly.
I wish I knew you then.
Yeah. So I did start doing it a little bit more regularly then.
So what's regularly?
Thursday and Fridays nights, sometimes Saturday nights.
Like on a weekly basis?
Yeah, usually. I mean,
right.
I would do it more often than not. I would just didn't want to talk to my family about it. Didn't want to be like, "Hey, I'm doing this."
It was a secret?
Yeah, because I mean,
What about your
some of my friends knew, not all of them.
Because I
I
understand why you keep from family.
And I didn't want them coming.
Right. Make you feel embarrassed or self-conscious.
Yep. And then some of my friends came, but not all of them. A lot of them were at college.
Right. You chose the show business route.
I said, you know what? I'm going to do stand-up because this is going to be funny.
This will be my career.
This will be it. And I did it. And so there was a woman that went on before me. And she would just talk about, stuff I didn't find funny. And it's not that I don't find women comedians funny.
Well, do you?
I do. I like Joan Rivers, Tina Fey, I think is probably one of the greatest.
All right. But the woman in front of you
was not.
Right. And as a comedian, you that's the worst thing because you go into what you consider a cold audience.
Correct. So the 1 week, and I would keep them on note cards, my jokes.
Yeah.
And
like 3x5 cards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And the 1 week she went up there and told all these stories about getting pregnant and all this nonsense. And it just wasn't funny to me. And so I heard it, went up afterwards and was just like, that wasn't good or whatever. I didn't say it out loud, but just went and did my routine.
Right.
Didn't get it as well as I was hoping. The next night, she was in front of me again.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, come on!"
So she was a regular on the South Jersey scene as well,
the Comedy Cabaret Belmar, and so I'm sitting backstage and she's doing the same routine.
Okay. And
so I start writing her routine on the back of the note cards.
All right.
So now I'm going to be Andy Kaufman. I'm going to, there's my comedy.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Andy Kaufman. If those who don't know,
yes.
his shtick, right, was making people uncomfortable.
Correct.
There's a theme we're seeing here.
We're going here.
Okay.
And so I write down her routine, and I got up there, and the MC introduced me.
You're immediately following her.
Immediately following. The MC introduces me.
Right.
I walk up there and I said, "Well, that wasn't funny. Let's see if it's just the delivery or who's telling it." So I talked about getting pregnant. I literally did her routine.
Okay. Did you get more laughs than she did?
None. I didn't get one. It was dead silent. It was,
it's also kind of mean.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. And I would never recommend to do it. And I feel like a schmuck now that I did.
You were taking a risk.
I was.
And Andy Kaufman
Yes, but the lights are on you, so you can't even see the audience. Even if they're in the front row.
Right, you can only hear.
You can't. You can hear, and then there's a light in the back that goes on when it's time. And this wasn't one of those, you see all those things on TikTok or whatever now where like the audience is
let me stop you for a second. When she gave her routine, you didn't think it was funny, but did the audience find it funny?
No, they weren't really laughing either.
Okay. Did she get more laughs than you did?
Well, in that time.
Yeah.
And nobody laughed. I went up.
How long did you do it? Did you?
I tried to do it.
You went through the whole thing.
No, I went.
You were committed.
I was committed.
I respect that.
Yeah, thanks. And they did it.
I really wish I could have been there to see this.
Yeah. So then
I would have been laughing, not with you.
Everybody
at you.
Everybody would have laughed. with me because they would have gone, oh, I get it.
No.
But nah. Anyway,
nobody got it.
yeah. The MC gets back up and he goes, well, he'll never be back. And he was right.
So you were
never.
Not only was it bad because it was in such bad taste.
Oh yeah, it was
that
terrible.
they said, well, yeah, good job, get out.
Yep. And
was this a paid gig or this was all open mic?
No, I made a couple bucks. It wasn't much.
Not enough to put yourself through college.
To put myself through college.
Yeah.
Yeah. By that time, I was already.
Did you have enough to put yourself through the drive-through?
Yeah. Right. Can I take your order? Anyway. So I did write stuff.
Yeah. Did you do anything that was actually funny? I mean, you obviously bombed that night, but
yeah, there was times that people were really.
Was that your last night as a comedian, or did you try again still after?
I did one other open mic somewhere else, and I don't remember where it was, but I do.
No one else does either.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't any. Yeah. So then, coming here, Vince wanted to do some sort of plays or whatever.
Pastor Vince
wanted to do some plays here at the church, and I was like, yeah, I can write it.
Let me ask you a little bit more about that. Like, was there something that caused that, or he had already, like, had you expressed to him that you were looking for a creative outlet, or did he know that you had ever done something like this before, or like what was the impetus for him to even ask?
Well, so he used to do the plays at Baptist High when he was at school there,
right?
And so did my ex. So he actually talked to her about, hey, maybe we should start up some sort of.
So he just had a desire to do some kind of like play
thing
at the church for people to attend, and like a drama,
right? And so I was like, yeah, I can do it, like, because I wasn't even involved. It wasn't even
so it was just something that sparked the creative juices in you.
And I said, I can do that. And I said,
having never done it before.
Yeah,
your confidence is astounding.
It is. It's crazy, right? I said, hey, I can do a podcast. Yeah. And you're like, can you?
Yeah.
And I was like, well,
we're not
middle-aged white guy. Might as well start a podcast.
Yeah, well, it's the American dream.
Yeah, right. Now it is. And so I said, yeah, I'll write it. But here's what I want to do. I do not want. I don't want robes. This isn't going to be a biblical time play. It'll have biblical themes. It'll have the gospel message in it. It is going to be a Christian play, but what we're doing is like, we're going to do modern times.
So modern times, but just scenario or the, like you said, the principles of scripture being presented by the characters.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that's what I wanted to do. So I wrote the first one, and it was a Christmas one. So we did it near Christmas. And I think we did 3 or 6 nights on the first one.
Okay. And it was open not just to the church, but to the community?
Correct. And it was well received. We did well.
The actors, were they all from
everybody
church?
Was from Emmanuel.
Like, you didn't open that up to the community. So it was a church presented drama play.
Yeah. And
with Christian themes, Christmas related.
So what I did was, Vince was the lead, who
he's quite theatrical.
He sure is. And he was a boss who hated Christmas.
Okay.
And
like Scrooge.
It was basically
I'm just trying to figure your
which is funny because your
inspiration.
And my inspiration are always, anytime I write names or whatever, I usually people I like.
Okay.
So I named him Kaufman. I forget his first name in it, but it was after Andy Kaufman.
I understand.
And then realizing that that's a Jewish name, and no wonder he hated Christmas.
that wasn't your intention.
That was not my intention. It was just writing it. And it was supposed to be pretty funny.
Supposed to be.
It was supposed
was
to
it funny?
It was.
Okay.
It was good.
Would the woman at the comedy club have found it funny?
No, probably not.
Okay.
But I wanted it to be lighthearted and have a good message.
Mm-hmm.
And then I killed him off in the end.
The boss.
Yeah. He dies in a car accident.
Oh, great. That's very uplifting.
Yeah. So I didn't want to. Yeah, but there was the whole. It was good. I don't remember 100% of it. So anybody listening that was in it, they probably remember it better. But again,
well, it gets all mixed up with all your other productions.
It does, because I wrote 5 for the church.
5. You
Yeah.
wrote 5? Did you?
We did 3.
You did 3?
I wrote 5.
Okay. All right. Continue.
Anyway, so then we did it. It was pretty well received. The next one we did, I wanted to do one on the war.
Which war? World War II?
World War II. It was basically like my grandfather was in the Second World War, so I wanted to kind of base it off of his life, but I twisted it a lot.
Okay. So like set in that time period?
Set in that time period.
Times reflecting back.
No, set in that time period.
Okay.
So back then, so there was where the piano is up on the little lever
on the stage?
on the risers.
Okay.
They weren't there. They were built
in our church sanctuary.
In our church sanctuary. Now we're outside the sanctuary.
We are.
Inside the sanctuary, there weren't the levels up on the side. It was they were short, and we raised them for that play.
Okay.
So that I could use
The levels. Yeah. That's a Seinfeld episode.
Yes. Yes, it is. And so we did that, and I used some a lot of sound effects and cool stuff like with guns, but and also on the stage were pews. There were pews on the back of the stage.
PEW.
PEW.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes. Pew pew. So we actually had to take them off.
They were on the stage for the choir. They were like the choir would sit there.
Yes.
Back in the day when all the wood paneling was still up.
Yes.
Okay.
So we actually had to take them off to do it.
I got
Then Joe Massimilla built on one side of the stage like a little backdrop for what was to be home here.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a kitchen or whatever. Okay. And then the other side of the stage, we brought in logs and trees and made that where the war was happening.
So depending on whatever action was happening, you just moved to one side of the stage or the other.
So we were doing the war on the one side. On the other side was the girlfriend or fiance actually waiting at home and with her friends,
right,
and going back and forth.
All right,
and we kind of hit back and forth. Then the lead role in that was Billy Mulligan, and so he was younger. He was the youth leader at the time
here at the church. Yeah, out of Annual. Yeah.
I guess he was the youth pastor. I don't know if he was a pastor.
Okay.
But he was the lead, and then Vince was his sergeant. And
well, I'm just curious, what were their names in this production? Sergeant Holka?
Yeah, I don't remember. I do not remember, honestly. And then, but so right before intermission, I wanted to, try to get the emotions going.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or maybe it was near the end. I don't know.
Who'd you kill off in this one?
So I killed off Billy.
Okay. The lead?
The lead.
And halfway through?
Near the end. It was near the end, but it was in mid-conversation. I wrote it as, I can remember how I wrote it. It was, well, you get to go home. And he goes, so where are you from? Vince is talking to him.
Sergeant Vince.
Yeah, Sergeant Vince. He says, where are you from? And he says, Portland. And he goes, Portland, Maine? And he goes, Portland, Oregon? And he goes, no, Portland, Maine. And as soon as he said Maine, I had strobe lights flash into the crowd. The sound of that bullet was so loud. And then it went totally dark. Strobe came back on for a second. Vince is holding him, screaming, medic, medic. And then the lights went out and he keeps screaming, medic.
Yeah.
So then we slowly bring the lights back up. There's not a dry eye in the house. I was like, I win. They got them all. They all cried. Renee Horvath at the time, now Goeli, started singing Amazing Grace as we brought flag.
This is part of the production. She didn't just randomly stand up and
no. Renee, what are you saying here? No, she was in it.
I got it. I didn't know at first.
And they walked down the aisle with the flag,
the
folded flag. Oh, it was good, but it was
well, in your opinion. Yeah.
That was one of my better ones, right?
Okay.
So then, and we're going way like this is the most random topic ever, but okay. So then they asked for the third one, and they said, "Can you do it a prequel, because prequels were getting big
Yeah.
because of the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, which were
Can
terrible.
you do a
Yeah.
prequel?
Yeah.
Can you do a prequel to the first play?
Yeah. How did he get?
How did all this happen and all
Yeah.
this stuff? So I did.
You got to give the people what they want.
Right. And we did it. And I'm going to say it was the writing. I'm going to say it was the directing. I'm not going to say it was the acting.
Okay.
It was awful. It was downright terrible. It was one of the worst things I've ever written. I wasn't feeling it.
Did you know it before you performed it?
Not really, because there were scenes I wrote that I thought, okay, this is going to be real touching.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody starts laughing. And I'm like,
so
what are you doing? Why are you laughing at this?
Right. You were trying to make it sincere and people were finding humor in it. Because it was bad or because it was maybe a little too melodramatic?
I don't know. But then afterwards, I got more compliments on that play than I ever got on anything else.
Okay. So it wasn't received poorly. You just didn't like it.
I couldn't stand it.
Okay.
And I know everybody else, and maybe people now reflecting back, if they would be like, yeah, that really was bad. But I was so mad, and I was like, you know what? All these people, they want vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want anything.
Caramel macchiato.
Yeah, they don't want it. They don't want they don't know because they've never tried Rocky Road.
Yeah.
And maybe that brings us to
our next topic.
Our next topic of
entertainment is in the eye of the beholder.
Right. So is like, I don't watch a lot of Christian entertainment. I don't.
Okay. Like TV shows,
movies. Yeah.
Because you like to kill people off.
I like to kill people off.
A lot of resurrection in Christian themed movies. Yeah.
They all come back to life. Who's this Lazarus?
We've discovered what makes you tick. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on. Jesus, why are you bringing him back to life?
Exactly.
On, man. No. But I wonder, like, to me, I don't know why that is. Maybe it is production wise. Maybe it's because I don't know. Is it that formula, like a Hallmark movie?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my experience with a lot of Christian productions up until recently, where, Hollywood or whatever studios are involved seem to be investing much more money into Christian themed productions than has been the case over the last, 50 years, which it's funny because,
Hollywood's
the first epic movies that really came out were movies like Ben-Hur and the 10 Commandments and anything having to do with the life of Christ. Like they were very popular, I guess, in the 50s and 60s. And then, Hollywood kind of went away from that. And then, so there was a kind of an upsurge of independent or smaller, production companies, film studios trying to do some Christian theme stuff. And they just didn't have the money to put into hiring the best actors or writers, or especially when you talk about things like sound quality or even editing, which it's like most people don't think about editing when you're watching a movie, but when you see something that's done poorly or not as well, it stands out. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I would assume. Now, like, again, so you talk about like quality and stuff. Mm-hmm. I do love Ben-Hur. I think Ben-Hur is a great film.
Right.
The 10 Commandments was a very good film. It's not one of my top 10 films. I don't know.
No pun intended.
Yeah, right. I think there was pun intended.
Oh, okay.
But
I understand why you didn't make it on the comedy section.
I try so hard.
Well, that's the problem.
Really? I should just let it roll off. See, you're getting way funnier than I am.
Yeah,
anyway.
well, hey.
Yeah, if the shoe fits, right?
Maybe I got to go find the Comedy Cabaret. Is it still around?
No.
It's a shame.
No, I don't think the hotel's there. I bombed so bad.
You shut the whole place down.
I did.
They couldn't recover.
They were like, you know what? Just close the doors. But as far as like, I've watched a lot of those. What are those Kendrick Brothers films with like Facing the Giants?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They started, I guess, in the late 90s or early 2000s when they start coming around on the scene. I don't remember exactly when. I know it's been a while. Yeah. And they tapped into something, right? Because they were probably the most successful in up until, more recent years of garnering an audience and even getting into some mainstream movie theaters. But most of their success came like straight to video stuff, right?
Right.
DVD. I remember that's how I first heard about it. It was Facing the Giants, and then it was
Fireproof.
Fireproof. I was going to say Bulletproof. Wasn't there like because that was a fireman themed one, right, with Kirk Cameron?
Yep.
But then there was another one with police officers. Oh, Courageous.
That's
Which,
right. Yeah. And I've seen all of them.
Right.
But I wouldn't call them like
Classics.
Yeah. They're not going on my.
But again, even though they were probably, as far as investment, like they may have been a couple $1 million. I don't know what they spent, but movies today, like epic, the blockbusters are $250 million productions. But I don't know what the average cost of a movie is. But $1 to $2 million is not really scratching the surface of a major Hollywood
production
produced movie. But this was of a higher quality than a lot of the other. I don't want to denigrate the Hallmark channel. But they have a formula and kind of repeat, with different actors, a lot of the romantic, what do they call them, rom-com type of movies that are pretty corny, but they have an audience. But I think what you're saying is a lot of the Christian films up to some of that point was a little canned, a little
seems
cheap.
Yeah. And maybe I'm going to sound awful here, but it almost sounds...
You have so far, so why would you change pace?
Right? Well, it almost seems like, because as a Christian watching it, it almost seems propaganda-ish watching it. And
right, it's kind of a little heavy-handed in the way they deliver the message.
The delivery of it. And I understand that maybe somebody who's watching that isn't a Christian is like, you know what? That really... That touches me there.
Sure.
And it can move you in a different way, and where you are in life and what you're going through. Of course, each one is going to do it. To me, it's not the quality of The Godfather or a film that's...
You keep going back to movies, there a lot of people get killed. Is that what really is?
So we don't have to go with a killing movie. I mean,
I'm just saying the comparisons you're coming up with.
Yeah. So it's not Batman. No. I'm trying to think of something that
I'm teasing you, but I'm saying, is that it? You obviously have a darker...
Well, understood, but one of my all-time, like if I go with my top 10 movies, The Wizard of Oz is in there.
Okay, there you go.
So I do.
The witch does get it at the end there.
Oh, she does, and at the beginning too. Oh, wow. So, there's got to be a movie that I like. That
maybe it's a good time to take a break, and then maybe you can think of something. What do you think? Yeah,
we take
how
a
about
break?
We do that? Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Emmanuel Baptist Church, where our focus has been building strong lives in Jesus Christ since 1925, right here in Maple Shade, New Jersey. With 2 Sunday services at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., you can choose the time that works best for you. And if you have children, our Greenhouse Kids Ministry and Nursery are available during the 11 a.m. service, so you can worship without distractions. But that's not all. On Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., we offer Sunday school classes for all ages. And if you're looking for a midweek pick-me-up, we have a variety of events on Wednesday nights. For more information on all of our programs and events, visit our website at ibclife.org. Follow us on social media and check out our weekly bulletin. And there's one more way to stay connected with us. Download our Church Center app. With this convenient app, you can stay up to date on all of our events and register for programs. Emmanuel Baptist Church, building strong lives in Jesus Christ.
Okay, we are back with Outside the Sanctuary. I'm with Greg, and we are discussing entertainment and secular entertainment.
And why you hate all Christian movies.
Wow. No, that's not true.
So we've determined that you prefer movies where people die, it seems like.
It's true, but let's go with the Christian movie that I do enjoy.
Okay.
Which is the best Christmas pageant ever. Is it the best Christmas pageant? Yeah, the best Christmas pageant ever.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. Anyway,
now there was an original
No.
that was out in like the early 80s, right?
Yes.
And it was like more of a made-for-TV thing.
Correct. And I
Loretta
enjoyed
Swit from MASH. I remember
enjoyed
that.
It wasn't bad.
It was corny, but I liked it. Yeah.
But then this recent one that just came out last year,
Like this past Christmas.
2024.
Last Christmas.
Yeah.
I gave you my heart.
Uh,
Keep going.
you hit me. It was like Wham.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
No,
a little bit like Wham. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So
Stand-up career didn't take off, huh?
no, it didn't.
Can't imagine.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway,
So you like the
I thought
the
that
best Christmas
was
pageant ever.
because it was well done. There was
Explain what you mean by well done.
it kept me entertained with the amount of humor. The acting was actually very good in it.
Okay. I didn't see the recent one.
So Judy Greer was in it.
Don't know her, but that's okay.
She was in like the Jurassic World. She's been in. She's around.
She has a resume that's not just Christian films, right?
Correct.
She's been in a lot of Hollywood productions.
Hollywood productions, and it was just well acted. The kids in it were a little bit more believable than the original.
Well, sure, yeah.
And
just to point out too, like there's definitely a difference in quality in something that's made for TV versus a movie production.
Nowadays, I don't know if that.
Well, and you're right, because TV has changed, right? With all these, Netflix and Hulu who are paying movie type prices to make, what they say TV shows, but it's more of a series, a mini series. So in essence, it's a movie that's just longer.
Right.
But yeah, and traditional TV being a half hour to an hour, weekly, episode, 23 episodes a year kind of a thing.
Right.
Something that's made for TV was of a lower production quality than a Hollywood movie. And that's, I think, what you're referring to with some of the Christian productions that you didn't appreciate as much.
Right. And, I don't see anything being Citizen Kane or even,
Citizen Kane?
Yeah.
Is that one of your top 10?
Top 10.
And
that's probably my number one.
Main character in that movie, when does he die exactly?
In the opening credits.
Ah,
that's literally the beginning.
Wow.
But Duck Soup. Nobody dies in Duck Soup.
Duck Soup. Is that a
Marx Brothers film?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. That's one of your top 10?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I love the Marx Brothers.
Where were you born, 1918?
Yeah, it's funny because trying to show it to the kids and then going like, yeah, so when he's talking about Ethel, I think that's...
I've never seen Duck Soup, so I know who Groucho Marx is, but that's about it.
You haven't seen any of the Marx Brothers films?
I have, no.
I
was
missing out.
I was born a century too late, apparently.
Why? Why put a time limit on it?
Like I said, it wasn't something I made a point to go see. Yeah,
it holds up.
I don't dispute that. Yeah, I like old westerns.
Okay,
but I just
nobody dies in that. All of a sudden, we're gonna go on.
Hey, Shane, Old Yeller.
Is Old Yeller really one of your favorites? Now, there's a movie from my childhood that I do remember. They showed it to us in second grade at Bethel.
It's horrible.
Oh, why would you show kids
exactly
that? It's terrible.
It's terrible. It's you just weren't expecting it.
No, why?
For those of you, I don't want to be a spoiler, but Old Yeller gets shot at the end of the movie
by the kid.
Yeah,
his owner.
Yeah, it's
the worst.
Yeah,
this is going to be the saddest thing ever. It's still it gets me now.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was not a good film. Oh man, I would watch anything over that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think sometimes in just entertainment in general, like I don't find Tim Hawkins funny. I don't.
Oh, I just went off back to comedy now.
Well, no,
so people don't know. Like Tim Hawkins is a comedian, but he's known for his particularly Christian brand of comedy.
Correct.
Because his venues aren't so much arenas or comedy clubs. It's
I
churches.
saw him at a church.
Yeah, me too. I've seen him several times.
You like him?
I like him. I think he's funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think his writing isn't bad.
Okay.
I think his delivery is terrible.
You think he writes his own stuff, or you're saying someone else writes for him?
I don't know, but I think I saw him once. I almost said every time I saw him. So every time I've seen him, which was once, his opening act was way funnier than he was.
Did he come out and just do their material and try to make it funnier?
Yeah. I wish he had.
He didn't follow your formula.
If he had, it would have been a better night. I'm just saying the opening comedian was way funnier.
Okay.
But I just like.
What is it about his delivery
I
style that you don't like? Can you quantify it, or it's just
No,
something
it
that
just seems it's almost like the way he's trying to deliver it is hokey.
Hmm.
It doesn't come off as like real comedy. If you watch like other comedians that are known, Mount Rushmore.
Well, I mean, I think again, comedy is very objective, right?
Of course.
Everybody's got a different view of what they find funny, because there's people talk about comedians. Oh, you should watch this guy, and I watch him and go, not only didn't find it, like I didn't laugh at all.
Right.
Versus you're telling me he's great, but it's I realize is it objective or subjective? Subjective is when it's open to, right. Objective is more straightforward. So I got that wrong.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, I think with Tim Hawkins, his material is funny and his delivery can be over the top, but he also incorporates a lot of music.
Right.
Like he does parodies, song parodies, Christian song parodies. And I think what maybe he garnered him an audience is he was maybe one of the first comedians who started making fun of like, church related stuff, which is almost kind of seemed like, oh, that's the sacred cow. You can't talk about styles of worship or things that happen in church. And that's what I found funny about him. And he does a whole homeschooling bit because, I think he was homeschooled growing up, and then he homeschooled his children. So as Maria and I, my wife, Maria, as we were homeschooling our daughters, I think that's the first time we went to see him. We went as a family, and he talked a lot about homeschooling. And so, it was relatable material for us. And again, not making fun of homeschooling, but some of the different types of styles of homeschooling or families that do it. And it just, it was relatable. And then so we found it funny.
Yeah. So like Nate Bargatze.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, same.
Seen him several times.
Yeah, and
going to see him in August when he comes to Philadelphia.
Yes, same. And I know we're not going together because even though you invited,
I'm taken.
Yeah, no, I can't. I love him. I think he's funny, but he isn't. His delivery.
He's a Christian.
Correct.
But he doesn't classify himself as a Christian comedian in the sense that he's not doing material that is Christian themed or related, but he's also, they call him a clean comic. Like he won't use any vulgarity or he's very family friendly. So you can take your kids and, your grandmom and, and that's part of what, and I've heard him speak where he says, I always envisioned that I'm speaking to my family, my parents and my grandparents. So I want to have comedy that they could, not feel embarrassed by.
Right. And now, do you like Tom Papa?
I've seen him. I think he can be funny. Yeah. I wouldn't call him one of my favorites. And again, I think it's just a style thing.
Yeah.
Like he talks about things that should be relatable to me, right? Parenting, family, fatherhood, marriage. And sometimes I find him funny. The other times I go, not for me. But I think most comedians are like that. I think there's very few comedians that are, I laugh out loud, crying, side hurting every time I see them. But there's, I'm a Brian Regan guy.
Okay.
And I think, because what I like with Brian, he uses language, right? Talk about delivery. He likes to take words and kind of explore some of the different meanings or the, even the order in which you say them. And it really ticks him off when there's people who try to, I guess, impress you with their intelligence. And he kind of mocks that a little bit. But he's also a guy that can be really expressive with it, using his voice as kind of like an instrument and not doing impersonations, but, his volume and he's a very sarcastic guy. So I find sarcasm pretty funny.
Yeah. You don't find me funny, huh? No. Okay.
Is that what you're doing? Sarcasm?
I'm trying. So yeah, I mean, I guess it all comes down to just
taste. Preference, right? It's so I would never try to tell anybody else that, somebody they listen to isn't funny. I just would say, I don't find them funny.
Right.
Now I can
not just funny,
elitist and say, that guy's just not funny, but he's not funny to me. Whereas obviously, the fact that you even heard of somebody means they've had an audience somewhere. Right. So the fact that they have any kind of following, and sometimes you're like, well, this guy's got a whole stadium full of people and I don't find him funny at all.
Oh, there's people I don't understand that at all. But then again,
there's a whole group in Belmar that have that same experience.
Wow, this is going to be. I'm not going to let this one down.
Yeah.
So as far as other things going, like just movies, TV shows, even music, like I don't like. I go to a lot of concerts. I enjoy going to concerts. It's one of my things. I feel different going to a Christian concert than I do a secular concert. And
help me understand what you mean by that when you say feel.
so the last time we went and saw We the Kingdom, it was Casting Crowns, We the Kingdom. When we went there, I don't know, like, to me it was tough to separate that, like, we're singing some of the same songs in church. So it's like that difference between worship and just
well, I mean, there are
Christian
Christian artists that are like elevation music, right? Whether I'm like them or not, but their concerts are more designed to be, I think, more like a worship experience than a traditional concert where you're going to maybe even just listen or I'm not a big music guy, so it's hard for me to relate to this. But the experience, right, of just being there with the musicians that you appreciate and hearing the lyrics live versus, on a recording. And then, something I don't like and why I maybe don't like concerts, like I don't particularly like it when the audience sings along.
Oh, really?
To music.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like, I didn't come to hear you sing, I wanted to hear them sing.
Right.
So
but I like that interaction between me and like he can hear me.
Right. But I can understand why, as a collective group of fans, why you want to join in the singing. And so I'm not saying I can't understand it. I'm just telling you I don't particularly like it, as a thing to listen to.
Okay. But do you not like all the people as well? But I mean, you go to sporting events, so I guess that's not, it's just the music.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would prefer more often than not to watch something, on my TV screen in my living room, because people in general and I just don't like crowds of people, but the expense that goes along with it. And I don't always find that the value matches up to the actual cost.
Right.
Especially if your team loses, which as a Philadelphia sports fan, that's another episode, but it happens more frequently than winning.
That's kind of why I would rather spend the money on the concert than I would on the...
Right. There's not a winner or a loser.
Right.
Well, in some aspects, right? I mean, I'm sure you've been to a concert that is disappointed.
But you pretty much know what you're getting into. You have a feeling.
It's a known quantity.
There's been...
But everybody can have a bad night.
They can have a bad night, or, I mean, I've seen some pretty bad concerts, but knowing going in, like, I'm not really a fan of this band, but I'm going with
but you're going
friends.
Just to check something out, right?
Yeah. Friends.
But okay, you know what a bad concert is, but what separates for you like a great concert from an okay concert?
Okay, so I just went and saw 2 concerts in the last couple days.
Okay.
We flew down to North Carolina. We saw a show Sunday night. We saw a show Tuesday night.
Same band.
And Sunday nights was good, and it was fun.
And this is a band you're a fan of.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing the T-shirt now that I got at the show. It was Pearl Jam.
So I'm saying this wasn't somebody you were familiar with.
Yeah,
was somebody you're following.
Yeah, I'm flying down there to see them
just for this.
Yeah, and we made a vacation out of it, so it wasn't. I didn't drag Lisa, my wife, to.
But so 2 different nights, two different crowds, same band, same essential,
same venue,
same order of songs.
No,
so they changed it up.
That's what I love about Pearl Jam, because they never play the same show twice.
Okay.
Every concert is a different show. And so Sunday night, we heard a song that they rarely play. And it was great. But as a whole, it didn't seem like the crowd was as much involved. They did a good job. I would say it was a good concert, not a great concert. Tuesday night was a great concert. And they actually did a song that was on my bucket list to hear, and they've never.
So that's what I'm trying to explore. Like, what made the difference for you? Was it just
felt
the crowd?
Like the crowd was gelling more, the band was gelling more. It was a little bit more cohesive. It was just an all-around great show. Now there's other bands that I like where it's almost like a theatrical Broadway show.
Right.
Where if you saw them on Sunday and you saw them Tuesday and you saw them Thursday, they're playing the same set, the same songs. they're going to stand in the same spot because of the lighting. They know where they're going to be. That isn't Pearl Jam. They're just, here we are.
Right. It's more about the music than the theatrics.
And taking requests from the audience or whatever. It's just a totally different. And that's why I can see them multiple times and still enjoy every time I see them. But yeah, I do enjoy seeing a show like that. When seeing We the Kingdom, it wasn't for me as far as, I guess I got confused in my own head. Am I worshiping now because these are songs that you worship to Sunday?
Right.
Or are we just rocking out to Christian words and having a good time? I don't know. Maybe in my own head, I blend that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I said it's hard for me because I'm just not a
music
guy, and
yeah.
I don't. Music isn't a huge part of my makeup. I don't dislike music, but more often than not, if I'm driving, I'm putting talk radio on, a podcast, or maybe outside the sanctuary, or sports radio, or an actual sporting event. Or I like classical music, and it's not because I'm really into the classical music, but it because there's no words. I think it gives me a sense of calmness and kind of relax, because I tend to get a little tense when I drive.
So when you listen to classical, are you listening to like Bach, or are you listening a little bit more Mozart because he's a little bit more like funky?
I couldn't tell you
really
like one versus the other. I don't know enough about the music to be able to distinguish one artist from another. What I like is stuff that's heavy on violin or some but I might be able to recognize like 5 pieces of music in all of classical music. So whatever, there's a local, radio, and they only play classical for like half the day. It's like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then it's jazz the rest of the time. And I'm not a fan of jazz as much. But again, it's more about how I feel. It's not the music itself. And I'm ignorant, right? I think if I learned a little more, I could appreciate it more. And this is recent. Like I didn't grow up listening to classical music. The past 5 or 10 years that I noticed the station. I was like, you know what? This actually makes me feel calmer.
Yeah.
But I don't sit there and weep when I hear a beautiful piece of music, or go, oh, did you hear the how the vibrato rose here? I don't know anything about any of that. But it's just about a sense of, sometimes I get tense. Not sometimes, I pretty much always get tense when I'm driving. And I've noticed that when I have this on, I calms me down. So I've translated that. Even sometimes now I sit in my office. We're taking the discussion a completely different way now. As I'm preparing a sermon or studying, like if I have words on, my brain will focus on the words. You understand? So
absolutely.
I have a very one-track, single focus mind. So distractions for me are distracting, as oddly as that might be. But when I have music on that has no words, and classical is my go-to, I feel like it actually stimulates some of my thinking and my ability to, put words onto paper. And so I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. And that's something I've only recently in the last year really kind of discovered. So if you walk by my office and hear classical music, I'm probably working on my sermon or something.
Oh, wow.
But I won't have it on if I'm just sitting there, or on a phone call or doing something on the computer. Like, it's not background for me. It's just that in those times where I'm trying to be more focused or more intentional with my thinking, it helps me kind of block other things out, I've noticed. But I wanted to get back to you with the whole concert experience, because you're talking about, and I think I get that, right? The idea of, you go to a Christian concert, is it mostly about worship, which is different than just listening to music? Although, from a secular perspective, I would go as far to say is that's the closest to a worship experience that a lot of people get without having a relationship with Jesus or understanding what worship about. Because in worship, it's not about receiving, it's about participating, right? It's about giving God something from you, right? The worship leaders, a true worship leader is not a performer.
Correct.
They are a conductor, and so, trying to. Last night, we had our Wednesday night Bible study, and Steve Entwistle came over and led us in some singing, and I reflected on that briefly, because I was like, wow, like he was singing, of course, and he's playing the piano, but there was something about him, his sincerity in it, right? That led me to also want to be sincere in what I was trying to offer to God. And I think a good worship leader is able to do that. And where's the line drawn, right? In a Christian concert, because, the people are Christians. They might be singing things about God or Jesus or about faith, but it's not necessarily a church worship service.
Right.
And there's other artists who are much more intentional about the songs that they write. They want them to be played, and a lot of them are played in church services. So it's hard to distinguish. Am I here to worship?
Right.
Are you a performer or are you a worship leader? And, I understand why you would hesitate to be like, well, this is like, I'm mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I'm going about this in a completely different way. So what's the expectation here?
Right.
Right. And I think it's really up to, the performers themselves, like what do they consider themselves?
Right.
And I think sometimes they need to be honest about that. Like, this is not a worship service. If you choose to reflect and put worship out, I'm not preventing that, but it's not, that's not our goal. Whereas other bands or groups or performers may do that. But I think it's tricky too, because as being a Christian performer, like there's nothing wrong with a performance.
No.
Appreciate someone's voice or musical ability, and it just makes you appreciate music, and it's also giving glory to God. I think we're supposed to use our gifts to glorify God in whatever we do.
Right.
But I would struggle being in that position myself of, am I a performer? That, it's basically, as a performer, you're saying, look at me, and as a worship leader, you're saying, don't look at me, look at God. So yeah, that's interesting. But I think each attendee has to make that determination as well.
Right.
Like if that person's music helps you to have a better understanding or worship experience with God and draws you closer to Him, and fantastic. And that's your intention for going to the concert, and that happens for you, praise the Lord. That's great. But someone else can go, I'm just going strictly to be entertained and enjoy the experience because I like this performer. I don't think there's a wrong side on either one. I think the onus is on the performer, because, Satan, Lucifer, it says he was kind of the worship director in heaven, right? He was the high cherub, and part of his fall is desiring the glory that belonged to God, right? And I think there's nothing closer to that than someone who, and a pastor can experience this too. Like, am I performing or am I teaching? Am I trying to, because teaching the Bible is just another form of worship, right? It's trying to help the Holy Spirit to illuminate our minds through the message of the Word. But there are, I would say, Christian men who get in front of large crowds, and they use their gifts and abilities, and it's more about them than it is about leading people to God. I don't want to judge anybody's heart, but sometimes you can tell when you're looking at somebody.
Right. No, that took a turn that I like.
Yeah, well, that could probably be another podcast, because I think we're probably coming to the end of this one.
I think we are. So
you got any jokes to close us out on?
Jokes that I'm not a joke teller. I mean,
all right, it's bits.
It's usually bits or little stories.
Yeah.
Even when I did those mid evenings, I mean, the beginning is my monologue.
Right.
Is usually a story, which I talked about going to a Christian concert. And,
yeah, you did.
But usually it's just little
anecdotes.
Yeah. That's usually what I
get it.
Find funny. Maybe there's a little, hopefully throughout it, you're getting little bits and pieces, and I'm sure as it's being told, some is just going over the head or intentionally, like it's just, if it makes me laugh, then that's really all that matters.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't be and with that, when I'm doing those mid evenings, that's pure performance. It's not
right, but you're incorporating other things in that. You bring in guests, you have acts,
Correct.
You have competitions. It's more about entertainment than it is about bill, right? I mean, even though your name and picture is on all the advertising material.
Yeah, because it's all about me. And
I guess you surprised your face isn't in.
It was going to be.
Yeah,
but,
we took it out.
Yeah,
your wife.
Yeah, it was just like, to stop putting yourself up outside the sanctuary with Bill Merkh and whoever he wants,
and whoever happens to be in the room. We should probably quit.
I think we should. I hope you guys subscribe, follow, like us, and we enjoy.
I don't know if anybody could like this, but
really?
maybe the next one.
maybe the next one. Hey, we always put up a stinker once in a while.
Yeah,
And
bring back Vince.
yeah, right? Yeah. So, okay. Thanks, guys.